What's up, everyone? We're here at Books and Brewskies with a special guest today, my one and only sister, the B Moods. Say hi.
Hello.
And we got Christian here, like always.
What's up?
And we do have another beer from Tivoli Brewing Company, which is actually, we gave it a little taste before, it's super good.
Yeah.
I like it. Our rating was 4 out of 5 stars.
Yeah.
So.
Check the YouTube video, and we'll be on Instagram too of the review of this beer. This is the Tivoli Mountain Squeeze Juicy IPA. Like Shane said, we rated it 4 out of 5 stars. I can't remember exactly what we said about it, but we liked how it wasn't super bitter. It wasn't like over the top like most IPAs are.
It wasn't like super hot.
Yeah, it's like super smooth, super creamy. Definitely is very smooth off the end. Doesn't kind of leave you with a bad aftertaste. Almost kind of tastes like, I thought it almost tasted like ice cream at the end of it, like an aftertaste of ice cream.
Yeah.
But that was just me. So.
What do you think, B Moods? Take another
Let's
sip.
see. Definitely a hint of summer.
Yeah, it's definitely it's definitely got a little that hint of summer in it. But
It smells very orange. Like I haven't cracked mine open yet, but I smell your guys's, and there's a lot of like mango, kind of citrusy,
peppers and stuff.
But anyhow, this one, it's brewed with 5 different hops. Allows you to savor the taste of champagne mango, succulent honeydew, pineapple, underripe peach, and a touch of orange zest. So it says it's Mountain Squeeze is bright and made to enjoy the heat of summer, cold of winter, and every season in between. They say it's kind of like a coaster of flavor. So it's enjoyed with Hawaiian pork tenderloin, according to Tivoli.
Ooh,
so
Hawaiian pork tenderloin.
If you're making some Hawaiian pork tenderloin and you're drinking this beer, you're gonna have a good time.
I like it. Well, here we got Brooke. Brooke, we want you to go ahead and tell us about your life. Give us a backstory. I mean, I've been around most of your life. But give us a little backstory about, just kind of start wherever you want when you were younger and just kind of go through there and through college and everything, and we'll bounce off you and just kind of go off different questions from there.
All right, my 27 years of life. Here we go. Grew up, born and raised in Colorado. Spent most of my childhood playing sports and camping, boating. That was a lot of what my family did, or our family did. Started out doing ballet and tap and soccer, and when it came to U11, which is when you turned competitive with sports, kind of had to make a decision there, which ultimately played a really big part in my life with that one decision when I was 11. Ultimately chose to play competitive soccer and kind of leave the dancing world behind. And that really started a huge chapter in my life, going competitive soccer, which ultimately led me to, well, actually before playing college soccer, we were second place national champions for U18. And then, that led me to playing Division I college soccer at the University of Montana. Had a really successful career there, I'd say. It wasn't a lot of ups and downs, as a lot of college athletes have that, but ultimately finished strong, which I was very thankful for, to play all 4 years there and have a good career. After college, I did get the opportunity to kind of try and go pro, which took a lot of thought and reflection. I thought I wanted to do that, but ultimately I felt my heart kind of yearning to go elsewhere or just try new things and see what else life had to offer, since that was such a huge part of my life for a long time, 10 plus years.
What do you think was that like breaking point of like choosing that you didn't want to go farther with soccer and said that, hey, this is the end of the road for me? What did you have a certain moment that really declared that?
I don't think
decision?
It was necessarily a breaking point. I think it was a peaceful like chapter closing of just, it was really hard, like with our last game, and knowing that was probably going to be the last competitive game I've ever really played, but it was more of a yearning to see what else life had to offer me, and I was excited to dive into the unknown. So from there, moved back home to Colorado. Thought I wanted to be a naturopathic doctor. I was pre-med all throughout college. Actually, I thought I wanted to be a physician assistant. And then my last senior year semester of college, thought I wanted to be a naturopathic doctor. So went through that whole process, actually got into naturopathic medical school in Tempe, Arizona. Ended up going to orientation and being like, this is something I'm super passionate about and I love and I believe in it, but again, felt something else yearning on my heart of wanting to go explore what life had to offer me, and I didn't know what that was at that point. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I knew I didn't want to go to 4 years of schooling. I felt like, especially being a Division I athlete, you don't have much of a life in general, so I definitely felt the need to go out and not kind of be constrained.
Do other hobbies, other things that you love besides sports.
Yeah.
Like we did our whole lives.
Yeah, and I mean, schooling could have been a part of that and education, but again, just didn't feel like it was the right thing on my heart at the time, and a lot of that had to do with multiple things, whether that was exploring new things, but also finances play into a big part of that, and fortunately I didn't have to worry about that with college sports, so it was just a whole new area that I was like, whoa. So anyways, ended up living at home for a while, which was a blessing. Didn't know what I want to do career-wise, and I think a lot of us struggle with that after college of what do we want to do, and especially being a college athlete, like that defined us for so long. So after thinking I knew what I wanted to do and then not, ultimately just had a connection to kind of dive in with a company that I didn't know much about. It was in the healthcare industry, so I knew that I would still enjoy it. Ultimately worked my way up within that company, was there for 5 years, so stayed at that company, about 4.5, 5 years. And then during that time, I finally kind of knew the yearning on my heart was to move to Texas. So that was a big leap of faith. Yeah.
You were a little girl.
Yeah. It's always been on my heart, and I think I always knew, but I didn't know how to make it happen. So, and really it was just taking a leap of faith and making that work and driving down one day and doing that. So moved to Austin, Texas, not really knowing anyone there, and lived on my own, and it was the best thing that could have happened because led me to where I am now and the people I've met, and allowed me to have that experience that I think I was always yearning for, of being independent and free and exploring a new place where people didn't really know you, and you got to set your own boundaries or just allow people to meet you for the first time. So
what would you say was like the biggest struggle with that for like people who are especially like trying to move into another state or move into another, just change their lives? What would you say was like the biggest struggle of going somewhere where you don't know anything about, you're living on your own, you're having to go do everything by yourself? Like, what would you say were the biggest struggles with that?
I would say all the biggest struggles were the what ifs in your head of what if this doesn't work out, or what if I'm not happy, and it's really easy to kind of go down that rabbit hole of what if I'm not financially stable, or what if I fail. So ultimately I think letting all of that go and like trusting what I knew deep down was what I wanted, and just knew that I would figure it out once I got there. Like, I think sometimes we feel like we need to be super prepared to take that next step, and sometimes taking that next step is what you need to do before you get prepared, in order to get prepared, kind of. So
that's because we were talking about like a little bit on a couple other episodes, we were talking about like with John and everything, how about like being prepared to take these risks is a big part of it. But Brooke's saying like sometimes you either don't have the experience, or you're not able to get prepared for these risks, and sometimes you just have to jump in to get that yourself almost like prepared, just jumping in already into it. And that's what's like tough. And I mean, that's good to like hear then I feel like you can take both routes. Like if you have the opportunity to try to prepare, you try to prepare for it. If you can't, sometimes you just got to take that first step.
Well,
and the
it's
first
like
step's
a
everything.
calculated risk, you know?
Yeah.
Like one of my friends described it, her CEO actually described it as you would take a step towards your destiny and your destiny is going to take a step towards you. So it's like you have to take that step in order for you to see the trickle effect, or else you're not going to see it. You're just going to kind of be waiting for things to keep happening.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I've viewed it. You have to take that first step, and then I think you'll get the signs of, was this right or not?
Yeah. And the passion has to take over.
Yeah.
And that's who you posted, what's his name on?
TJ on Instagram.
Yeah, TJ.
Yeah. Yeah.
How he was talking about like passion is almost like overrides the other like failures. Like you just have to like thrive and say if you're passionate towards it, you're going to start putting in the hours towards it.
Yeah.
And then that eventually is going to make you successful. And then that passion and success and love for it is going to make you money. And then that's what's going to kind of like skyrocket from there. And you have to read the signs like you're saying.
Yeah.
But now you're at Facebook.
Yeah, so that was a big thing. So I worked myself up to being a recruiter in my last job. I think everyone that's a recruiter just falls into recruiting and they never really know that that's something they want to do or is even out there. So
what is a recruiter, like specifically?
Recruiter, I mean, you could think
people.
about it in ways of sports or business. It's you go hunting for people to do the job that you're looking for. So, that was a big. I worked from home in Austin, Texas, with the first two and a half years, which was nice in the beginning. But I definitely felt like towards the end I wasn't challenging myself, and I knew there was something else out there. I just knew I had a lot more to offer than what I was kind of what my company was currently seeing or doing with me. So. It took a long time though. It took a long time to take that leap of faith and like believe in yourself. And I had that, but I think I needed to build that up again of like, these are my strengths, this is my worth, and go after a company like Facebook. They say it's easier to get into Harvard than it is to get into Facebook. So, and there's like statistics with that, but
that's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, and I remember like meeting people that worked at Google and Facebook and being it's called the imposter syndrome of you just think like these people are way above you and really like you're all on the same level and offer like the same things. So I definitely had imposter syndrome when I was thinking about like my next career step and what that would entail, and listening to financial things as well, and just knowing what you're worth in that aspect can be hard. So ultimately like took a while and I had to go through multiple job interviews. I actually interviewed with Facebook and didn't get it, and then had to interview again a few months down the road and got it. So it's just that persistency thing as well. And again, knowing your worth. And I will say, I feel like that is something I've always had.
Did you say sports helped you with that, or would you say parents or lifestyle that you chose kind of helps you find your worth? Because I think a lot of people do struggle with their worth, and a lot of people will like stay in these jobs for over 10 years and like realize like I have a better potential. So what do you think like more solicits like this is why I make these decisions and I know my worth from that? What do you think is the biggest benefactors?
I think for me, I've always leaned on faith. Like for me, everything that's happened in my life, whether that was good or bad, ultimately like I got out of it, and I got out of it being a stronger person. So why would that not happen now? So I think it's just looking back on your life and being like, okay, I got through this tough time. Like if I just keep pushing, I know I'm going to come out stronger and better. So I think that's a huge part of it, like leaning on that faith aspect. But I think in terms of confidence, I think sports had to do with that. I wasn't always so super confident in sports. Like you had to work for it. And I think it ultimately comes from like a work ethic aspect. Yeah, it's more of just like an innate thing. I've thought about where I've got my confidence from before, and I haven't fully like been able to tap into that, but I do think there's like an innate, the people you surround yourself with, like your surroundings play a big part into that. And I've always surrounded myself with positive people and people that saw good in me. So that might have to do with it as well.
I think power of association around certain people is huge.
Oh,
Because if you're around negative people and people that have a negative mindset, it drags you down so much. Like not even just your own attitude, but your confidence in what you want to do too.
Yeah. And that's like you saying like in sport, like sometimes in sports, like I don't know if you felt this, but same thing. It's hard like time and time again to be confident in a sport, but then I felt like I'm confident in all the other areas of my life, but it was hard sometimes to like stay confident in sports. And then I realized, like the power of association. Sometimes coaches are drawing you down with that like self-confidence because you have that other like negative feedback also that could like draw down that self-confidence. But then in other areas of your life, you're like, yeah, but I'm super confident in this and that. And it's like, I think it has to do a lot with like your day-to-day routine and that like effort and constant like work you put in day in and day out builds that confidence. And then you like have no doubt in your mind, yeah, this is who I am and I'm strong in this. I'm strong in this faith because I've done it day in and day out, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, if I, for that push for Facebook, like my boyfriend Cody definitely helped me see what I already knew, but like reiterate that again of just like, you can do this, you are worthy, like you are smart, and just having someone, again, be surrounded by that and have your loved ones remind you of those things can really be big in times of like self-doubt. So
yeah. And Cody also being like an entrepreneur and everything, what would you say, you working at Facebook and him running his own business, like what are times, is there stuff that you help with him also on top of like him running his own business? Do you help with him kind of like learning new things or how he handles things? Like do you ever give him advice on that? Because that was something I was learning. We were reading the book and everything, was like Joanna, before they started, because we're reading Capital Gains, before Joanna and Chip like got together and started doing their like shows and everything like that, Chip was very all about his mind, like all about what he wanted to do, right? And then as Joanna came into his life, she gave him like a whole different perspective. And he was like, yeah, she runs like this part of the show and I let her run that because she has that mindset, and then I run this part of the show. And I know you two aren't working together, but do you think you play like a big kind of like a big role into like what Cody does too and what you do in your life with work and everything?
I would say I play more of like a supportive role, and we both play that together. You know, I can lend him words of advice because my parents work together and own their own small business for 25 plus years. So I can definitely say I've given advice on what not to do or what I necessarily wouldn't recommend. And you learn that, and that's not a bad thing at all. But I would definitely say I play more of a supportive role when it comes to his entrepreneur and like running his company. He'll have ideas and I'm more of like, I trust you and go for it and I'll be there if things go wrong. So I definitely think since we are in two different careers, there'll be things though where I'm like, you know, he needs to go send out thank you notes and I'm like, all right, let's sit down. I'm gonna sit down with you. Let's whip it out. So I definitely think in terms of that, I play more of a supportive role aspect.
Yeah. Well, you having your own company, Christian, how do you feel like your past relationships and stuff like that play a role into like supporting you in that, and does it affect you? Do you like taking like the support of it, or would you rather have like maybe in the relationship, if she would to be a part of it, what do you take, I guess, what do you take from their aspects and your aspects that you put into like your own work?
I think overall, I mean, I definitely like having the support, but I'm not good at taking advice, even if it's like what I end up coming around to on my own. I mean, for example, so with Erin, over the last like couple weeks, I was bitching about something, and so she told, I don't remember what it was exactly, but she told me something like 3 weeks ago, and then somehow, some way, I found my own way to that same like conclusion.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So I'm personally not good at taking support or advice, but I really do appreciate it, even if I don't show it in the moment.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh, that's not a good idea. I don't want to do that. But then somehow I work my way to it. So in the grand scheme of things, I think having that support or somebody to kind of throw those ideas in your head is a really good thing, because having that second kind of eyes on it who maybe not is directly involved is always a good thing to have. Whereas a lot of times, you have people like me who are very stubborn and don't want to take other people's advice or work towards things. I think that for those kind of people like myself, I have to work towards being more open-minded to letting other people kind of give their opinions and taking them as much or as little as you want, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
I don't know if that answers that question very well, but
no, that makes sense. That's exactly like in that. I feel like Brooke and I seen our like parents do a business together and everything like that. Like you can tell when you have like the same eyes, because you're both in the business, and then you have outside eyes like Brooke and I that can give advice and say, okay, this is what we see from the outer view. But like you said, as a like entrepreneur and stuff like that, you have to be open-minded to the advice around you to then take your like next steps in these jobs or in these lives and stuff like that. And I think a lot of people do become stubborn because it's like, well, I created this, I did this and everything like that.
Yeah.
And now you want to do it your way, but you're like, when you do actually take a step back, you're like, okay, actually you have some good thoughts on this.
Yeah.
So then you try to take it into your own words. So I think that's big. And he talks a lot about that, like how you do have to take the advice from like outside people, and you got to learn from like outside people and say, okay, I do got to tie this in. I got to take down my ego, and I have to say, hey, this is where I stand, basically, or this is what I got to learn from like these people. And that's huge. And the biggest thing I pulled from like the book, I was looking at it, and they were talking about, Chip was talking about like, yeah, I had a great upbringing, and Joanne had a great upbringing. And they're like, but here's the biggest thing that we do. He's like, we take from our parents the good and great things about our parents, and now we spin it into our own life, and then we take the God gifts that we've been given and then put it into our work. And it's like, now they take the goods and they know like what their worth is, and they put it into one, and they're like, that's how we become successful. And they realize like, she has these certain gifts, he has these certain gifts, and they have to like, even though they are in opposites on certain pages he talks about, but he's like, yeah, but I let her use her great like minded skills for that, and I do my great minded skills for like the other pieces, and it works well. So it's kind of good seeing that and like hearing that from a guy who's like super successful in that way and everything. So
yeah, that's huge. I think a lot of that comes with like trust as well, or at least acknowledgement of the people, like the person's advice, whether it's like your girlfriend or your wife or a friend or whoever it may be. Like, of course, your defenses may be up at like, if someone's trying to tell you how to do something, like your first initial reaction may be defensiveness. But I think it's important to, and it may come from a communication style of like, I hear you and I really appreciate you letting me know that, and like I will take the time to reflect on that. Because you want that person to still like be seen and heard, or ultimately like they're going to shut down as well and not offer you advice. So I think what I've learned in relationships as well is just like that acknowledgement and communication style is huge. I think it's really easy to get defensive when you're offering advice or trying to tell someone else what to do, but delivery in that as well is huge, and how someone delivers it is big as well. So
you hear that, Christian communication skill. Us boys can't be like quiet and held back. We have to talk.
It's not easy.
Say the emotions.
I'm not good at talking.
Spill out the emotions. That's the hardest part. But I mean, I think if you had to take like probably the biggest piece of a relationship is communication. I think communication skills is like the biggest piece. And some people don't learn communication skills. And that's one of those things where it's like, you could go your whole life and through school and stuff like that and not really take a, communication class or something like that. And not actually how to build these skills and like learn how to communicate in a relationship. And that's what's like different is a lot of people, if you're alone and then you're in a relationship, you're like, oh, well, I'm not used to like telling people this is how I feel. But you got to remember, now you have two people in one relationship. Like, a lot of people aren't good of like expressing their feelings, or aren't good of, giving the support, or like love languages or something like that. That's, that Brooke loves the love languages and everything. But people speak in different ways, right? And that is important to understand about like your partner, about, if you're in a friendship or something like that. You got to understand what gets their wheels spinning and what also shuts them down,
Yeah, communication is something you'll work on for your entire life. I mean, you could read books on it till you're 90, and still that innate like thing is going to come up. I was just listening to something on apologizing, because I can be really bad at apologizing, and a lot of us do the apologize, like, I'm so sorry, but, and they were like, never, ever, ever, ever do an apology with a but. If you are putting a but in there, then it's not an apology, because you're like trying to prove a point,
make
or
an excuse.
You're taking it out. And I just thought that was really interesting, because I do that a lot, where I'm like, I'm so sorry, but you did the same thing like 2 weeks ago, and stuff like that. Tough. So it's not easy. I would say with that, like, it is super important to take that into your own hands. Like, listen to podcasts and read books, and kind of push yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone, and take time to reflect on yourself, because it's not easy. And I can say in a relationship, the biggest thing for me to remember is you're a team, and that can like, you want to go back to like put your walls up and be independent and like not rely on someone else. But when you keep that mindset of being a team, like they're on your team, it really does help.
Yeah. And that, I mean, I just kind of lost my train of thought. But that, like you saying, the but and like, I'm sorry, that I think that's a huge piece that people have trouble swallowing their pride. They like wanna, very much so. They always want to make like an excuse of like, this and that. And I think it is tough, and I think that's just the world we live in, that we want to, give our opinion. So I think there's a point, like you're saying, like, where you got to apologize, but then there's also a point where like you guys can talk, and then you can tell your opinion on like, this is how I felt though. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm.
Totally. Yeah, I think it's totally good to share your opinion and how they made you feel. But if you're going into the conversation to give them an apology, you don't. Yeah. That's not when you do it. And that's, but yeah, communication's big. It's not easy.
Yeah. And that's what I was like, we live in this like time where everyone wants to say something, but no one wants to like actually listen. Like we're all thinking like waiting to say like our turn, like waiting for our time to say, okay, well, this is what I think.
Yeah, everybody wants to respond.
Yeah, everyone just is waiting to respond, not actually listen to what someone has to say. And I don't know if that's part of like just the fast-paced lifestyle that we have nowadays of like go, 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 that it's like we almost push that stuff away, and it's like, well, we'll get it, or we'll figure it out, or like just let it roll off, and then we'll deal with it later, or something like that. It almost adds like another stress. And I feel like when you got work and you got all these other things going on, you try to like push the communication and that like stuff away, and then it piles up, And I've seen that a lot, like in relationships, and that's the hardest piece, that you have to make sure that you don't push away like building and growing in the relationship as you're trying to get like a job, or as you're trying to build a business, or as you're trying to, whether to take care of kids and stuff like that. I mean, we've talked about that, where like when you have kids, you can't only sit there and say, well, now the kids are my life, and then not worry about your relationship at all. And like say the kids is all my life, that's all I do now. And I've seen, it's kind of weird, like us training athletes, but it's weird when people have kids, and I've seen it with our athletes, like parents, they get like so involved in their kids, and they forget what them and their husband or them and their wife are. And it's like, you can't just put your lives on hold when you have other people in your life. I think it's like a hard balance to find, but I've seen that a lot with athletes' parents. I don't know if you've seen that, because like I've had like, moms and dads come in, and then you can just like tell in relationships that they, or like conversations they've had with me and stuff like that. I'm like, well, what do you guys like do for yourselves, you know?
Yeah.
And you kind of pick up on that.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot with athletes, you see it kind of come in and you see the parents almost buying into what the kid's doing and living through that more than versus like caring about what they do themselves or focus on their own lives too. Like, it's as bad as it is to say it, but a lot of parents live vicariously through their kids and their athletic skills that they didn't have or did have and didn't take it as far as they should have or whatever it may be.
A lot.
And you see it a lot more with dads than you do with moms unless their daughters are coming in. And that's when you start seeing it with them.
Yeah.
But you see it, especially in the football world, you see it a lot more. This is from my perspective with like my athletes, and I had a lot of football guys. You see their dads wanting to be their kids so much when they're on the field, and like the dads are like on the sideline.
It's true. It's true. And I don't know what, like, I feel like the reason why is because those people didn't live up to their potential, or they stopped taking risks. They stopped taking a risk at some point and they just said, I'm going to settle. And then all of a sudden they have these kids and they're like, damn, like I could have done that. They almost get like jealous of like their kids that maybe I should have took that road or I should have did this. And it's like, I don't want to have kids and look back at my life and say, oh, I regret not doing this. I regret, like, I want to do everything I can and say, yeah, okay, like at one point my dream was to go to the NFL. Yeah. Maybe that might be one of my kids' dreams. I don't know. But I would never get there and get like jealous if like my kid went to the NFL and I didn't and said, well, this is actually where my life took me and I took a different path. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people don't take those risks, you know?
Yeah. I think it's totally fine to be a parent that is not to the point that you were saying, but to the point of like you're an intense parent and you want what's best for your kids and you push them and you try and challenge them. But I think the most important thing that a parent can do in those situations is set an example of like live what they're teaching their kids by doing what they're teaching. So like Cameron Haynes, for example, like he recently listened to a podcast with Joe Rogan and him, and like he was like, I had kids and I was like a fat old guy that was like drank shit ton of beer and all this stuff, and but he was like, I realized like my kids were ultimately going to learn from me, and I didn't want to be that dad that was just like, yeah, you better get in shape and you better run fast while I'm over here when like not doing anything. So I feel like if you're gonna get on your kids, like you better have a good reason and you better be like, look, I get up at 5 a.m. and I do this and I do that, or else like, I don't know. I feel like then you're filling a void. I feel like with parents kind of doing that. I don't know. I'm not a parent. I can't judge and I don't want to judge that, but I do feel like it's important to lead by example with your children.
It's funny to say that because earlier this week I was training at like 7 a.m. and it was like 7:30 and I had like 5 of my guys out there like at this park, and we look over and there's this whole family running and we're like, what the hell are you guys doing at 7:30 in the morning? And like here you have the 2 kids running in front of their parents and the dogs behind. It's like, okay, well, I definitely don't want to get up at 7:30 and run with my kids when I have that point, but I'll do something like that. But running at 7:30 in the morning is not ideal, especially long distance.
Yeah.
But that's like
so even those little
right?
Even set an example there, like those little things of these kids are in quarantine and you're getting up and say, okay, let's go for a run at 7:30.
Yeah.
You might not run at all, but you still like go and make that effort and that like conscious effort. And kids pick up on that, and even kids are so smart that they know like vibes from their parents and they understand it. And we get a lot from our athletes because they tell us more than what they tell their parents in a way. And we learn a lot about that. And they're like, yeah, well, this is what's going on at home or something like that. And you get to learn like, okay, well, sometimes these parents are like, well, my kid's not doing this. Like, can you get them to do this? Can you get them to do that? Or they're not motivated to do this and stuff like that. And it's almost in a way of like, yes, I'll do everything I can, but what are you doing in your part? You know what I'm saying? Like, are they going home and you're feeding them like shit? Are they going home and you're letting them stay up till like 12 and play video games? Are you going home and like doing all these other bad habits, and then when they come in here, you think like they want to be perfect and pristine, and then when they go home, you guys have all these lenient rules that don't drive your kids, you know? And it's like we were saying, like, it's tough to have, it's almost like innate that you have to have like a work ethic, but I think you do learn a lot of that from your parents. I mean, I learned a lot of hard work from my dad and my mom. So it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think a lot of these parents, like these kids, they learn from that. They learn their habits from their parents too, and through other things, but I don't know.
I think it's cool that you and I have a bigger influence over a lot of kids though too. Because they can look at us and be like, okay, I want to be like that. Like even though my dad likes to sit around and drink beer, I can be like Shane or like Christian and go work out and play sports.
Yeah.
So like in a way you and I have, and like every coach and for that matter, or anybody in a position where they deal with younger generation, you have an ability to influence a lot more people than you really probably think.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, even you at your job, you have to influence the ones that you're hiring or the ones below you, that you have to like hold yourself to a higher standard, and people have to look up to that.
Oh yeah. I mean, it doesn't just have to be a parent figure in order to have like a big impact on your life. There's, tons of role models that people have, and I definitely see that with you guys and your kids that you guys have for sure. I mean, just as much as we pick up on when we're older, like kids are more attentive. So if you're seeing that within parents, and of course kids are going to pick up on that. But yeah, I think a parent figure doesn't just have to be the only role model in someone's life or to make an impact for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird, but I've had a lot of kids that struggled more on motivation or had more struggles with their parents that made a lot of money. And I don't know if that has to do with their more time spent on their jobs and they don't care for their kids as much, or I don't want to say that, or more like they aren't focused as much on them. But I've seen more of that happen. And I guess I'm just saying at the end of the day, it's like when you do have kids, you have to be very conscious of what time you are spending with your job, balance your life with your job and with your kids, right? And with your like spouse. So it's tough because you do see these people who work really hard and they make all this money, and then all of a sudden, like, I see some of these kids in those lifestyles and they're all like bad motivation, like don't want to work hard, don't want to do that stuff. And I feel it's a lot from their parents that don't give them that attention in a way. And it could come from like anybody, but I've just seen it more with people who seem like they're very successful in the money. So that's kind of, I don't know. It's weird. It's funny to like see what goes on like with these athletes like lives and like these people's lives and everything, and taking that. But yeah,
I don't know. I think you're kind of hitting a spot on though. You see a lot of kids have either more struggles with certain aspects of their lives when their parents are busier, or they have a lot more money. Whereas you see the kids that are kind of more, I wouldn't say like average, but like not necessarily like living in Cherry Hills Village and have turf fields in their backyard, like level. Like you see like your normal kid, like they have a little bit more motivation and are a little bit more locked in a lot more areas of their lives, where you see some of those other kids that don't necessarily have a lot of that like locked in aspects of themselves, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah.
But
No, I was just gonna say I guess I almost kind of, I don't disagree. Like I definitely think those are observations and like definitely going to be true. But I guess I just view it more from like a value perspective of like ultimately what are you teaching your kids value? Like you can be, I know people, and Cody has people in his life who are really wealthy, but like they have taught their kids to have a faith and like where their values are at, and like family is always the most important and like things like that. And I guess I'm hesitant like to agree with what you guys are saying, because just because a parent works really hard and like has a lot of money, I don't think kids should, I just don't want to put that in like then you're ultimately like spoiled, and like have a spoiled mindset, because I do think there are families and parents that do an amazing job and have a lot of money and like raise their kids really well. But I think it ultimately comes from like, again, like leading by example. Like if you're going to work all day from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. and not spend time with your kids, like, yeah, your kids probably are going to be a little bit disengaged, and that's what they're going to see means hard work. Or is it going to be that they see their dad still like pays the bills but makes time to go to their soccer games? Like, I just think it ultimately comes down to like what you're teaching and your kids and values, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, I think it's, at the end of the day, it's what are you doing on the other hours that you're not working on? What are you telling your kids? And that communication that you have to have with your kids of like, I'm working hard and I'm having to do what I have to do for you guys and everything like that. So sometimes I can't do this with you or everything. So it is like the open communication that you have to have with these kids. And that's what it's tough, like, especially when they're like teenagers and they want to all like, rebel against your parents. We've all been there, but at some point, when you do actually just say certain stuff to your kids, like they'll listen and they'll say, okay, like they'll take it in and everything. But no, you're right. I mean, it just depends on your values and what you set as a family. Like, this is what we build our foundation and relationship off of. Is family super important to us? So that's good. I like that. You got anything, Christian?
No, I'm kind of just listening today.
Just listening to that?
I'm observant today. I'm very observant today. I'm not very talkative today.
Got drunk last night.
Got drunk.
I did not. You did.
I did get drunk. A little hungover, but
I had.
Still drinking beer.
Still drinking
That's
beer.
true. We're still drinking beers.
We're still
It's Saturday.
It's Saturday.
For the boys.
Exactly.
Lots of beers. Last night.
What would you say, Brooke, in your life, give us like who besides your parents was probably the biggest influence on your life that made you like a role model that was in your life? That kind of made, that changed your path on a different path.
Change your path on a different path.
On a different path.
Instead of going down one path.
Yourself?
No, I don't know. That's a hard question, because I think there's chapters like of people that have influenced me, and I think family is consistent, and family like definitely from when I was a little girl to now has definitely been the biggest influence, just because they're the most consistent influence. But I think when it comes to role models, that's more of like a chapter thing, and I can look back and be like, this person ultimately like led me to make this decision, or so I think it's hard to put in terms of like my whole life. I would say ultimately, I think friends play a big role into that. I've had friends, I went to an all-girls high school, and I'm still super close with a good group of girls. So I would say that they're like the most consistent next to family. But in terms of role model, that's a hard one. I don't know if I necessarily can pinpoint that.
Or you could do a
God.
what Matthew McConaughey says. I'm always chasing 10 years, like me in 10 years, basically. Role model.
Yeah, I love that.
Which I think is really good, actually, because if you put on something that is gonna possibly go away before your life is up. But if you always put yourself like 10 years ahead of you and you say it's me in 10 years, but you'll never reach that,
Yeah.
well, then you're always working towards something.
I actually really like that because I think that helps put into perspective of not from like your past, but your future of who you're working to be and who those. I think for me, that's an easier way to view it of who in my life inspires me to be the future self I want to be, which is a really great mom, like an independent, like financially, like a good wife. Like, I guess from that perspective, like my future self, who are those role models? Like, I think there's so many different people, and as probably millennial as this is of me to say, like people on Instagram and TV shows, like that may sound silly, but like Samantha Ponder, like she's an NFL broadcaster, and like I follow her, and she is a complete badass, but and also like an amazing wife, and an also like incredible mom, and has a super strong faith. So it's like when I see people like that, or it definitely like motivates me, and it gives me like I love following them, because ultimately like those are traits and values that I want to embody when I get to be my future self. So that's like definitely a positive way like social media has, for sure.
It is. And that, what Christian was saying, like a power of association. Social media is the same thing. Whatever you're looking up on social media, whoever you're following, whatever you're looking up constantly is going to get in your head. And if you're not looking at positive stuff, and you're not looking at people who relate to you, and people who motivate you, and people who you want to be like, you're going to put yourself down a darker path, you know? And I think a lot of people do get into like, they look at certain stuff and then they follow maybe certain stuff, and then all of a sudden it just kind of like builds up. And although we all know those social media, what is it? The rhythm, the algorithms and everything.
Oh, the likes and stuff.
Yeah, they like know, like they change your stuff on like depending on what you're liking and what you're looking at and everything. That's true. And I think a lot of people do get, like what I'm looking on Instagram could be completely different than what you're looking on, than what you're looking at. Like things will pop out completely different.
I mean, you can even just go off like what your Explorer feed or whatever. Like when you tap the little search button, like it goes off what you like and what you.
And that's what's crazy.
Look at, like you go on mine, it's 90% of the time it's working out, airplanes, and cars. Like,
but that's what I'm saying. But that's, so you get all that feed. But
Mine's Bachelor.
that's
all Bachelor girls.
I'm about to be on Bachelor. I said in my application.
Again.
Maybe.
Nice.
But I mean, that's what's weird to think about when you actually put that in perspective of, you're seeing that day in and day out, how much we're on our phones and everything like that. Just could change your personality.
Well, change your mindset.
Change your mindset.
Change your attitude. And that was actually one of my goals during quarantine, is one of my friends mentioned how she is very selective in who she follows, and has like, she follows like 300 people or something. And I went to mine. She actually came over in the very beginning of quarantine, but she was like, we looked at my Instagram and it was like, I was following like near 1,000. And I'm like, why? Like, why?
Yeah.
I definitely do not view that many people. Or so I made it a goal during quarantine. I think I'm down to like 600 now, or maybe I'm lying about that.
I'll see if you.
But like
to get back under like 1,000.
Yeah, I think it's important to go through and be like, okay, like, do I really care to spend my day like viewing what this person does? No. And like, I think that ultimately is looking out for yourself and like your mental health, and again, surrounding yourself with people that you want to be surrounded with. So I definitely
makes sense.
Tip for quarantine: if you're bored, just go here.
Well, I think it also depends on what you're using social media for too.
Yeah.
Because if you use it for businesses and stuff like that, sometimes you're not looking at that feed. You're just going in and posting your stuff. You know what I'm saying?
That's kind of how mine is.
That's what I'm saying. So, but I mean, that makes on your personal stuff, exactly.
Your
like you gotta know where to, weigh out your needs and say, okay, I gotta change this up. But that's like this quarantine, like cleaning up shit that you have like on your phone, on stuff like that. I've taken some time, and it's freaking crazy.
Yeah.
Like just pictures and videos and like
or even
just like things that you just like to relieve stress that you're like, I gotta clean this stuff up. Like this is getting out
it's
of hand.
important. It's like
It is important.
takes
Your
up
phone is a part of your life. You
mental
will get
space.
stressed if you don't clear up your phone. I swear people get stressed.
Well,
like
it's
another
just like
brain.
your living spaces. Like
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
live in, a stressed out space, it's going to affect you.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's important to make a calming bedroom. It's important to make an effective office, like
Yeah.
things like that. And ultimately, again, your surroundings are going to impact you big time.
Yeah. No, that's true.
Power of association. It's more than just people, it's also your room.
Yeah.
It's all your room.
Your house and your beer you drink and the people you follow and your explore feed on Instagram.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's part of life. Well,
Oh,
if
that's
you
crazy. I find myself on Instagram more, like, not on the actual like feed of people I follow. I'll sit on the explore feed.
Oh yeah,
you know
just
how
something
you
explore.
can go
yeah.
tap on like one
It's more
video.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, you tap on one video or picture and you get stuck in that just
Oh,
like
yeah.
just
It
rabbit
just like
hole
links
of
to all these stuff.
different videos. Like I find myself probably spending an hour every once in a while just like watching airplanes.
Yeah.
Like looking at like jet videos and stuff. It's really pathetic.
It happens.
But it's also like a part of your interest, and like
Yeah.
if that's cool for you to like go look at a new plane or whatever it may be, like that's
Yeah.
also like kind of educating yourself at the same time,
Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're looking at certain
It
stuff,
could be
you're
like the
definitely
same as
educating
reading.
yourself.
Picture book.
Yeah, exactly. A picture book. A 5-year-old picture book, Christian.
Airplanes for 5-year-olds.
This one. The F-19.
There was, I think,
No words. Just pictures. You're like, ooh.
I like picture books still. So, like I don't.
Those are the only books I read.
oh my
Those
gosh.
picture books. Now we're here and I'm trying to read ones with words. So, just kidding.
You listen to the audiobook, you don't actually read it.
Yeah, the audiobook. No, this one the ones that we don't have, I did audio.
It's because you can't read.
Yeah, I can't read. Never been a good reader.
Cody listens to all audiobooks.
Audiobooks are nice.
I don't know how you
Because
listen
it's
to a
like you
book.
could put it in the truck and you're just driving to work. You
Yeah.
can listen.
Yeah, but sometimes I want to listen to G-Eazy and like kind of just rock
Well,
out.
that's what I'm
over it.
saying. But sometimes it doesn't. Like music gets old and it's nice. To
Music
just,
gets really
That's
old
why we got
really fast.
podcasts,
I could listen to podcasts all day.
podcasts and audiobooks. But then it's funny because when I was younger, I'd make fun of my grandparents that had audiobooks.
I still make fun of my grandparents for listening to audiobooks, and sometimes I listen to audiobooks.
But they always listen to the ones that are like, I don't know,
Old.
like Stephen King, and it's like,
Oh.
Yeah, but like when you listen to them and like the other people read it, they have like the little like
it's like, and the man walks.
they have characters, so there's different people reading the book.
Yeah,
They get into voices and stuff.
Yeah, they get into their voices. Exactly. Well, if you had one to end, if you had one thing to tell the boys,
Tell the boys.
Yep.
Specifically boys.
from a girl,
Oh.
what is a good advice that you would tell a man or a boy?
I love when we have girls on because we get to do that and we get to learn things.
That's broad though, like in terms of
And
like
anything.
Anything.
One piece of advice.
one.
Whether that's like a
I can't give
relationship
10.
advice.
I'm just kidding.
You can give a couple if you want.
Mm.
Whether that's relationship advice or that's life advice or perspective, what you see or what women see more. I don't know.
I would say
Or that you learned in your relationship or
yeah, there's a lot. I definitely have learned a lot.
Cody.
No, there's I mean you're always learning
Cody's
in
on
relationships. Yeah, Cody couldn't make it
He
today.
couldn't make it today.
He's doing over. I would say like this is kind of general. I'll dive into some other things, but ultimately like girls just want to be seen and like in a relationship to make a girl be seen, whether that's like telling I'm a words if we want to get into love languages, like I think a lot of girls
Get
are
into
words of affirmation. Like they like to hear like you look beautiful or like hey like that was a really great job doing this or just like acknowledgement. And maybe I'm speaking like from just what I like, but I definitely think like being seen in a relationship is super important, and I know a lot of my friends' issues stem from like not like just not being seen, like whether that's ignoring them on text messages or whether that's the thing that's really worked with Cody and I, and something that really worked out in the beginning was like it truly was from his end, like maybe not my end, but like his end, it was no games. Like he knew what he wanted and he went after it, and like I felt like I was the only girl in the entire world, and like that's what's going to make you stand out, because there are so many guys that will tell you that like you're hot and then their actions don't, like they show completely different. So I think persistence and like letting a girl know that she's seen and like loved is the biggest thing. Because sometimes it does take, like it took me a little bit longer to get there with Cody than like it did for him. And that was maybe just like where I was at in my life, but like I wasn't ready for a commitment, and I like necessarily didn't want that, but like without him being persistent and like knowing who he was and knowing what he wanted, I like we wouldn't have been together. I would have walked away way earlier than that. But I think ultimately that comes from knowing yourself, and like if you don't know what you want, then don't waste a girl's time. But that's if you know what you want, then you better go fight for it.
That's funny, because that's what we were talking about with Brienne and you last night. Of just like, you can have feelings towards somebody, but if you really want it, and a man knows this, and this is what Brienne was saying, and she was like, if a man really wants it, he's gonna go get it.
Oh yeah, totally.
And we know that, and I'm like, that is true. Like, you will be persistent, you will be telling her like everything, like you're gonna fight for it. But here's the thing that's tough on a man's side, is I've actually done that with one girl, almost, basically, and when it doesn't work out, even though you try as much as you can, you have to, as a man, realize like it takes just the same amount of persistency also from the girl sometimes, because the man can't it's not an only one-way street, and that's what's tough, is like the girl has to give the guy affirmation too and say, okay, yes, respond, and like also be a part of that, like making effort towards it, And that's what's tough, is like sometimes you don't know your limit, like you don't know, like, okay, you talk, but like you have to read signs, right? You got to know like what's going on, but you also have to hear like from her, what is she giving you back? Like what are her answers coming back to you? Because then that opens up your eyes, like, okay, now I know what my worth is to you also, because for men too, they don't want to always like be there. Like good guys, I know, like good guys with good hearts are like, they'll fight, and girls will take advantage of that, and then you're like, well, I need something back. What is my worth to you for me to give this effort into you?
Totally. And I don't think it should just be like throw yourself all in without you knowing where she stands. Like in my situation, I told Cody exactly where I was at. Like, I like you. I'm scared of commitment right now. This is where I'm at. And I told him, do not go fast with me. Like, you have to be patient with me. Don't go fast. So it's not like I was like, I don't know if I like him or not. Like I think when it comes to like persistence in a man and like a girl, yes, you have to like have conversations and be mature about it. But like if a girl is like, hey, can you wait? Can you be patient with me? And like you're still willing to put in the work, then but if she's like, no, I'm not really interested in you, or like, I don't know what I want, or things like that, then it's like, okay, maybe this is not worth my time.
But I mean, it would be nice to hear girls say like, be patient. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes like you fight for a girl and then you don't get those, like, and she's kind of fighting back, but then she's like, well, I don't know if this is time. Why can't she just be like, yeah, be patient? Like that's what's nice. If someone does say be patient, then a guy can actually say, okay, like let's take slow steps. Let's see where it goes. Sometimes people just like, the girls get scared and then they don't say, I'm just going to be patient. They're just going to say, yeah, I'm not ready. And then boom. and then it like cuts off in a way. And it not in like a way I'm not ready that she wasn't interested, just in a way of like, yeah, I don't want a relationship, but like.
Well, I think I'm not ready also means I'm not interested. Like, I hate to say it, but like for men, I've always said this. I think for guys, it's more about timing. Like, I think guys know what they want. They know the kind of girl that they want. It's more about timing for guys. For girls, it's more about finding the right guy. Like, girls they say that maybe they're not ready, but if the right guy came around, they'd be ready. Like, for guys, I think it's more like they could find the right girl, but timing is going to throw that off. So, I definitely think with like a guy, it is super important to know yourself and know what you want. It's important for a girl to know that too, or else she wouldn't be able to communicate. Like, for me, like, I knew where I was at and like my emotions, I was able to like dive into that. That's why I was able to communicate that. And like for a guy to keep persisting, that takes a lot of like kind of putting your ego aside. Like, it really does. But that comes from like knowing yourself. And it also, if a girl, like, you keep doing that and a girl's like knocks you down after knockdown, like, it also takes a lot to love yourself and know yourself to keep doing that after those defeats. Yeah. Because you know your worth, you know like what you deserve and what type of woman you want. Like, it's just like to not get defeated and keep going after, like, okay, that just wasn't the one. Like, she's out there. Yeah. I think it's just ultimately it comes down to loving yourself and like, but I definitely think for guys it's more of a timing thing. Not all guys, but I think girls could find the right guy and they'd be ready in an instant, and guys could find the right girl and they're just not ready.
Waiting for the time.
Yeah.
No, I 100% agree. And I think I always say that too, like, I feel a lot of people they go from relationship to relationship, and they don't truly learn how to be independent by themselves or truly learn what they want in a partner, that they settle or they like don't ever figure that out. And I think I always said that, like, the more time you get to spend with yourself, eventually you're going to figure out, what do I want? What am I doing in this life? You have to soul search. You're doing everything on your own. Yeah. And I always tell myself that. I'm like, once you truly love yourself and truly like know who you are, then you'll be able to take that next step with somebody. Yeah. But you got to find someone else that knows that too. And that's what's tough, is like, when you truly know yourself and truly love yourself, it's more easy to see someone who doesn't know that in a spouse that you're like looking for, or a girlfriend or a boyfriend that you're looking for. Then you kind of like, you step back and you're like, well, now I want you to know yourself, you know? Yeah. So then that could connect on the same level, I guess. Yeah. But
to wrap up my advice, it goes, I guess I just thought about it in like a sentence that I just said earlier. Like, make a girl feel safe and she'll give you her world. So, drop mic.
Mic drop.
Make a girl feel safe. Christian, that's the advice.
And she will rock your world.
She will rock your world. I like it. You have anything, Christian, after that?
No, I don't have anything after
soak
that.
He's gonna go reflect.
Oh, man.
You go reflect after that.
Reflection.
All right, well, thanks, guys, for joining the podcast and everything. Thanks, B-Moods, for being on the show.
B-Moods 22, if I'm not answering. I may or may not allow you.
Yeah, she's already been unfollowing people, so don't expect to follow back.
You might get a follow, but not a follow back.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us and everything. Be with us next week. We know during these quarantine times aren't the best times, but do what you need to do. Find some good podcasts like us to listen to. Other things to do, and figure out, what can you do during this time to grow and like really find yourself and really take next steps in this life and find your potential. I mean, I feel like I'm busier than I've ever been in this time because I just have so much time
so
to do.
Real. It's not even fun.
It is, and everyone's like, well, I got so much time, but it's like, yeah, but you got so much time to do everything.
Yeah.
So it's like, take this time, try to do everything you can to really, whatever you want to do, to really take those next steps and really build who you are. Other hobbies, things that you love, passions, whatever, and go from there.
Subscribe to us on YouTube.
Subscribe on YouTube, and we will see you guys next week.